Some say that because Dr. Malachi Z. York took on the name Melchizedek, that he wasn't following in the ways of the Ethiopian.
True peace, true peace. This is a follow-up to the video that was done. Is this what Moonwapu, the Wapu breeds, part 13, Halal. And we touched on Prince York, name being Ramesses, which is a connection to a Phoenician pharaoh, which was an invader of Tamaray, also known as Egypt today. And we had someone in the comment section, which is Earl Dackins, a faithful cult member, follower of Dr. York, made some statements about Ramesses, the pharaoh, wasn't Phoenician, and that Melchizedek wasn't Phoenician, and they really never knew the true story about Melchizedek, which is a spirit in one case, and then you have a physical person carrying that name, and that Mr. York was also influenced by this same spirit that the Bible calls Melchizedek. But we wanted to go a little deeper into the history of Melchizedek and Abraham and whatnot to put it in perspective. So without further ado, I'm gonna turn the mic over to the Noon Nupu, who will definitely make it clearer on this topic. True peace, Ken.
True peace, what's going on, everybody? My name is the Noon Nupu. You guys already know I'm definitely of the Ethiopian race, and I'm here to help to put a lot of these fallacies and mysteries, and actually put forth the facts, because a lot of people don't understand that a lot of these mythological stories do lead back to actual people, and these names of these people have been switched out. And what a lot of people need to really understand is that Aphra-Hum gave the name of the spirit, or the particular god that basically controls that particular person. And many of the gods that control these people, they date back a certain race. And Melchizedek in particular, he personally backed the Phoenician race.
All right, so what we're going to do also is address a question or a statement made by the elder Earl Dackins, who's been following Dwight York for about 30 plus years, who made a statement that it's nowhere written that Melchizedek was a Phoenician or god of the Phoenicians. So we're going to also delve into that as well to prove him wrong, because he just don't give up, just like most cult members who have no mind of their own, and they always quote the cult leader as the primary source, who 9 times out of 10 has no background in half the stuff that they teach to the people, and this is what makes them a believer. So we're going to show and prove without a doubt that Melchizedek is written not only in the books that we have, but we were actually going to provide the actual historical account of who the true identity was, because the Bible is written in such a way that they change words but the person or the events a lot of times took place in certain parts, and so we're going to make sure that's known to the listening and viewing audience. So let's move forward. Who were Melchizedek, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Melchizedek was an incarnation of the Most High God of the Phoenicians called Elyon. Therefore, Melchizedek was Phoenician. As stated earlier in this booklet, the Phoenicians were a branch of the Hindu people. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are another way of saying Brahma, Vishnu, and Siva of the Hindu, because the Jewish people are an extraction of the Hindu, and Judaism is another form of Hinduism. Was Thutmose the first of Egypt Moses the lawgiver? No, the lawgiver was Hammurabi, king of Babylonia, who conquered all of Western Asia around 2100 BC and even went to Europe on his strength and influence. Hammurabi is called Melchizedek in the Bible, Genesis 14, chapter 18 and 19 verses, St. John 8, chapter 56 verse, Hebrews 6 chapter 20 verse, Hebrews 7 chapter. As stated earlier in this booklet, Abraham was a Phoenician people and the Jews adopted the name. The laws of Hammurabi, sometimes called the Code of Hammurabi, were not originally his work, but he developed and established the laws and codes that were originally made by the original Sumerians of Mesopotamia and Babylonia and passed on the peoples of Euphrates and Tigris River. This is York's drawing of Hammurabi, and next to it you can see the actual, what they call the bust, which is the upper head and neck and some of the chest of who they thought was Hammurabi. So you can see the way the hat is made, or the helmet that York had it drew from that. But they saying that this particular statue thought to be Hammurabi is actually a few hundred years older than the actual one. So even the depiction of Hammurabi that York used is also incorrect. Just wanted to put that in there before we move on. The original Sumerians who originally created the laws were African Pygmies. Hammurabi was Bodine, and the Bodines were a branch of the Phoenician people. Hammurabi Melchizedek was the incarnation of the sun god Marduk, sometimes called Anu and Elyon. Hence, the laws of the Old Testament of the Bible came from the books of Hammurabi, and the story of the divine exodus of the Jews came from the conquering power of Thutmose I. Hammurabi opened the way for more Caucasian immigration from Europe to Asia, and even set the stage that led to the Jews' invasion of Egypt. All of this means that the history of the Bible is mainly based on Egyptian and Babylonian histories, culture, and mythologies. The books of the Old Testament of the Bible were compiled by the Greeks, and the books of the New Testament were compiled by the Romans. So we can see here that Melchizedek was also considered a god, and also was called Anu as well. And so York also used those titles, and even had the Nawapians worshiping Anu, some still do. And also York had the picture of Anu drew in his image and likeness. And also Nawapian Assassin, another dedicated cult member, made 2 videos lying telling the Nawapians don't worship Anu. Yes, they do, and some used to. So these pictures and images show you that they always trying to switch the narrative, because that's what York did. He changed it, said one thing, and kept going like it didn't exist. And these are the facts. They do worship Anu, which is York, like we've been saying, because there's no way you could draw a picture of a being that's supposedly pre-existing human beings. That means they should look different and everything, but the being you draw looks like somebody modern day in your day and time, especially the being existed millions and millions of years ago. But this is the foolishness that the Nawapians love to create. Jesus became a neophyte and attended a school of Egyptian mysteries called the Pyramid, the same type of school that Moses Thutmose I had attended. During his attendance there, he became illuminated, that is possessed by powerful spirit forces. In other words, Jesus became an incarnation of the sun god. Elyon and the moon god Thoth, sometimes called Hermes Trismegistus, the man himself was called Esau Panthera. Esau is the same as Jesu or Jesus, and Panthera refers to the great sphinx at Giza, Egypt, which has the body of a huge cat and the head or a king. Jesus was an incarnation of the same gods that Melchizedek Hammurabi was, and this is why it is written Jesus was a priest after the order of Melchizedek. Genesis 14, chapter 18 and 19 verses, St. John 8, 56 verse, Hebrews 6, chapter 20 verse, and Hebrews 7 chapter. Melchizedek was a king and priest and an incarnation of the gods Elyon and Hermes, same as Anu and Sin. So what I want to say here real quick is that basically York was claiming to be an incarnation also of Melchizedek, which makes that spirit 6 ether, which is negative against the black race, which we'll go further into later, and Hermes, or the moon god Thoth, which is a 4 ether moon god in known science. So now you have the ethers go like this: 6 being negative, 5 is negative than 5, or the spirits that emanate from the earth, 5 ether, deader than the sun spirits are 6 ether, and the moon spirits, which is actually a dead universal body, emanates 4 ether, which is negative than 5 and 6, and then you have 3 ether, which is a part of the earth god, ghost god Osiris, is more negative than all of them, and the moon god is a magnifier of the mental dead. So York taught 6 ether pantheism, which is things that came before Christianity or whatnot, and then he taught religion, which came about in the rulership of the last 6,000 years of the moon cycle, which Tahuti or Thoth, Trismegistus, Zit-Tahuti ruled the first 4,000 years, and ghost god Osiris ruled the last 2,000 years, whose rulership was up February 5th, 1962. So when the Wapians need to understand, this is why all of their books have all this religion still in it, because that's who York is controlled by. A Phoenician or 6 ether sun spirit, put it like that, and a 4 ether lunar spirit. Okay, we're going to move on to the Nature Book 1, and it states, listen to reason to help the reader and listener to the reader of this book better understand what the writer means when he states that there are many gods but only one supreme being. He will identify the chief gods, who are the rulers in the bottom half of the smack circle of order, the time of circular changes in all existence, where all persons, places, and things are existing right now at the time it is writing. Who people call Allah today is the sun god. Known in ancient times by Agnomen, like biblical Eli of the Caucasian New Testament Bible. The word Eli is short for Elyon and Helios. The letters I and Y are interchangeable with each other, meaning one can take the place of the other. In ancient times, Allah was also known by names like Shamash, and again Eli, chief god of the Phoenicians, Baal, Marduk, Ra, Re, Amun-Ra, Danbala, Brahma, Zeus, Jupiter, Ta, Uranus, Molech, Lord, etc., etc. Eli, Elyon, Marduk was the god of Melchizedek, who it is written met and also blessed Abram of the Caucasian Old Testament Bible. Melchizedek was a Phoenician Arab originally. Let it be, remember always, and let it be known. Now we go to Nature Book 2, numbers 181 through 182, page 133, and it says, to put it another way, Caucasian Jews were originally Caucasian Greeks who became Caucasian Hebrews, practitioners of sun culture, before they became religious Jews and organizers of their own moon culture called Judaism. The conspiracy to dethrone and depower kings and rulers of African and Ethiopian race descent continued with Melchizedek and his general called Abraham, mentioned in the Old Testament of the Caucasian Bible. This conspiracy eventually led to the invasion of Egypt by the Hyksos, Greeks, Caucasians, and the oppression of Egyptians by these white foreigners from Asia, namely Assyria. Melchizedek was Phoenician by race and also a sun worshipper who conspired with Abram, who was indeed a moon worshipper, and an East Indian by race who paid homage to the moon god Shiva, same as Siva and Sin, be it remembered. And just to be clear, it's no such thing as a Arab spirit or African spirit as far as nationalities. Spirits don't have nationalities, just ignorant. We're talking about energies. even though the Phoenician spirit, which means the sixth ether spirit that incarnated into a Phoenician or those races, that is what we're saying. When the book say Phoenician Arab, it's talking about the Arab being the physical person of Phoenician descent is incarnated with a sixth ether being. Or when they say 3 ether is inside ghost people, or 4 ether is inside ghost people, or even darker people. Even Khufu, who was African, was incarnated with a moon spirit. So it doesn't mean that the spirit in Khufu was African. There's no such thing as that. They are from whatever orb they are. That determines what type of energy or location that it comes from. So just to be clear, to Malachi disciple who thinks that a spirit has a nationality or think that we do is indeed ignorant.
Now, if we go into who Melchizedek was, you'll see that Melchizedek was indeed a sun deity by way of 6 ether. What I mean by sun deity by way of 6 ether is that he came. The Phoenician race, they basically worshiped the sun. They were sun worshippers. Hammurabi, in particular, was a sun worshipper. And he built many temples before he actually got into power to the 6 ether god known as Marduk. And Marduk indeed is Melchizedek. And one of the main things that the nature books speak about is that Marduk, or Melchizedek rather, is definitely a deity that was spearheaded by the Phoenician race, and he had a follower or helper named Abraham or Abram. Now, to go into a little bit of the history between Abraham and Hammurabi, you gotta understand that the names of a lot of these deities were switched out. So because they were switched out, you gotta understand that the particular person that's dealing with the deity is not going to be in line with what you see in the Bible. So, but there will be a connecting clue that will allow us to see where the two people were connecting with each other, and on top of that, where they switched out the names. Now, one of the names that Abraham or Abram went by was Zimri Lim. Now, Zimri Lim was a king that lived, hold on, let me read the story on Zimri Lim real quick so that we can understand who Zimri Lim is. Alright, so Zimri Lim was a king of Mari from about 1775 to 1761 BC. Zimri Lim was the son or grandson of Lakhdun Lim, but was forced to flee to Yamhad when his father was assassinated by his own servants during a coup. The city was occupied by Shamshi Adad I, the king of Assur, who put his own son Yasma Adad on the throne. Shortly after the death of Shamshi Adad I, Zimri Lim returned from exile and was able to oust Yasma Adad from power with the help of Yarim Lim, the king of Yamhad. See, the important part to notice about that particular paragraph about Zimri Lim is that he was exiled from Mari.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on that the same way Zimri Lim was exiled out of his kingdom, the actual historical account, when the Caucasian was writing the history over it religiously, that's what happened to Abram or Abraham, based on the Bible said God told Abram to leave his country, and he did that. The same way the Quran records it in the way that said that Abram or Abraham was told to get out of his country where his father was at because he was against idol worship. Okay, so all of this is the same story, just being mutated because of what time it is in the bottom half. But we're going to go deeper as we go further. Okay, so now we know that Zimri Lim was ousted from his original place, which was Mari. Okay, Mari is in Assyria. Now, we know that according to the biblical version of the story, Abram traveled through Syria. And you can see I circled Mari on both maps, and you can see that it's in Assyria. And when you read the Bible, it tells you that when the Israelites made their declaration, they would recite that their father was Assyrian. So this goes right back to that, which basically this is Mesopotamian area, which is just Phoenicians and Noon science. Okay, so Mari is the place that Abraham originally lived at, was kicked out because somebody else took over his father's kingdom. He was exiled, just like the Bible said Abram had to leave his country, and the Quran supported that. Then he came back with some help. So we just need to just let y'all know this is the historical account of what took place, that Zimri Lim is the true Abram in the story. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, so when Zimri Lim was exiled from Mari, he basically came back to Mari's throne. But what's very interesting about that paragraph is that it has a connection to Abraham, and Abraham's name, Abram, means the father is exalted. They see in the Bible, they never told you where Abraham was particularly exalted from. But the connection between the two is that they were both exiled from their particular land that they were living in, or basically the land that they were ruling in. So this is the major connection between Zimri, Lim, and Abraham. And the names were switched out and basically put into the Bible so that people can be tricked or deceived into thinking otherwise. Now, when we get to Hammurabi, we see actually another thing that we before we even move on to that is that Abraham was a moon worshiper. A lot of people may not know that, but Abraham was indeed a moon worshiper, and he was also a general. And the reason why he was known as a general is because the title of Shakanaku in their particular tribe meant the military governor, or basically a general. He was every prince that was born in Mari, that's the title that was given to them. So he was indeed a military general as well. A lot of these stories are war stories, but they've been given to us in the Bible as if they're, these peaceful people, or they, or they're just this holier than thou people. But there's a lot of death around many of these biblical people.
The ancient city of Mari flourished from around 3100 BC till its destruction by Hammurabi of Babylon in 1760 BC. In biblical chronology, this means from the early time period after the flood of Noah until after the time of Abraham, probably a few generations into the Egyptian captivity. After accidentally being rediscovered in modern times, the site of ancient Mari was extensively excavated. Mari was located in a center of ancient power and was advantageously built at the junction of several major trade routes. Its importance is displayed through the archaeological discoveries made there: massive walls, temples, palaces, and public buildings. But by far, the most valuable discoveries at Mari have been from its golden age, encompassing the last 25 years before the city's destruction by Babylon. It's from this time period that the massive palace of King Zimri Lim has been found, containing 300 rooms on its main floor and another estimated 300 from a second floor. So well constructed was this palace that after more than 3,000 years, some of its door lintels were still intact. The most stunning find of the palace is what discoverers have deemed the Royal Archive, over 25,000 documents. These ancient letters shed light on the language, culture, practices, and advancements from the period of the biblical patriarchs. There are legal, religious, civil, and even personal letters between the king, his wife, and daughters. Besides creating a cultural backdrop on which to display the scriptural history of Abraham, the Mari archives verify biblical forms of covenant, animal sacrifice, and the existence of certain personal, city, and pagan god names. The Mari archives also contain prophetic literature, male and female prophets corresponding with the kings of Mari. What this does is gives historic documentation to the early importance of prophets.
And the reason why he was known as a moon worshiper is because he worshipped the god Ishtar or Isis or Inanna. This is a moon deity. And in his particular palace, he had statues of Ishtar, and they call it the Pazur Ishtar. Also, hold on, give me 1 second. What's going on with this phone? Okay. Also, what's very important to notice about this particular cult is that they had androgynous and hermaphroditic men who were heavily involved in the cult of Inanna. A set of priests known as the Gala worked in Inanna's temples where they performed orgies and lamentations. Gala took female names, spoke in the name of Im-Sao dialect. That's E-M-E-SAL dialect, which was traditionally reserved for women and appeared to have engaged in homosexual intercourse. So, the particular woman that found this out was an anthropologist called Gwendolyn Liek, and she was known for her writings on Mesopotamia and has compared these individuals to contemporary Indian Hajira.
All right, first, let's see how all this ties in. Let's deal with the identity of sin as related in the Bible interpretation. And it says in Book 1, an ancient name of the moon and moon god is Sin. The moon cycle, the sin cycle, began approximately 6,000 years ago. There were millions of people of other races on planet Earth when the Adam and Eve group were ousted from the Garden of Eden, Africa and Asia, and sent to the Aegean Islands. Who was Moses by race and religion? Moses was Phoenician. The Phoenicians were called Hebrew before the Jews adopted the terms. The Phoenicians were not original Egyptian, but a people who had supplanted the Ethiopians of Egypt in much the same way that the Jews, other Greeks, and the Romans supplanted the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians originally came from Asia and were invaders of Egypt themselves around 3000 BC. Moses was a ruler of Egypt and his title was Thutmose I. He was the beginning of the Moon dynasty in Egypt around 1600 BC. Moses was an incarnation of the moon god Thoth, also called Sin, and Hermes, his magic wand, was the Caduceus. Who were Esau and Jacob's 12 sons? Esau were the Phoenician people who represented the sun god Elyon, also called Zeus, and Jupiter. Jacob were the Jewish people who represented the moon god Sin, also called Siva, and Hermes. Remember, all Greek and Roman gods were originally Phoenician Hindu gods. The Jews combined and united all those gods and called them Elohim. The good gods were considered Yah, and the evil gods were considered Way, because the name Yahweh means good and evil. In the Nature Book 2, it says, number 69, listen to reason. Our moon, Sin. Sin is one of the ancient names of the moon and moon god. Originally had lakes and rivers of water until the suns and the universe died scientific death 18 million years ago. When the writer states that the moon produces hermaphrodites, he means on planet Earth by way of mind and spirit, because there was never any major life organism on the moon because of its status as being neuter gender. And when the moon lost its waters to planet Earth at 0.6 west, the beginning of evolution and death on the smack circle of the order 18 million years ago, the moon stopped turning on its own axis and started dragging through space instead of rolling, and thereby became an outstanding opposition to the sun, and increasing so until the end of the moon cycle, which is at the present time being at the marking of the year 1962. Let it be remembered always, and let it be known. All right, so what does this mean? What does all of this mean to Noonie Bulls and the Wapians? First and foremost, we know that according to the BIAE, the Bible Interpreted Explanation, the moon god Tahuti or Thoth is sin. So that means that sin is actually what people have been thinking is a male god, which is Tahuti. But really, Tahuti is a hermaphrodite. So that means since the moon god is an emanation from the moon, and the moon does produce, besides heterosexual spirits, hermaphrodite moon spirits, that means that Tahuti was moonlighting as a female in Mesopotamia and Babylon as a female goddess to them. But as Gwendolyn Liek had exposed in her work and excavation of the way they lived back then, and in that cult, it was hermaphrodite orgies going on. So why would a whole female be having hermaphrodite orgies instead of just heterosexual orgies? You understand? It don't make no sense. So, but we know that the moon god and the moon cycle, the sun cycle, was all about deception. And so that's the real deal. So we know that York had a picture of Baphomet in the tablets. He had a picture of hermaphrodite in the tablets. He had a picture drawn of Ishtar, had a picture drawn of Nana as a male, as her father, which is not the thing, which is not that. Sin, Nana is the same spirit being, was never any physical persons known as that, as a human being. But when a spirit incarnates, that body it's in become known as that. But just to keep it in a mundane level, there is the mystery being revealed. Sin in Nana, whatever you want to call it, is Tahuti, hermaphrodite, hermaphroditism, all that stuff with the Wapians are teaching, searching for hermaphrodites. I even have a message that one of his flunkies put out about 2 years ago on our group, that York said 6 days before his arrest he was looking for 6 hermaphrodites. He got Nawapians now believing that, you know, they hormone sexuals, that they came from an experiment from aliens that created these gay aliens, and these gay aliens end up becoming the root race of all the people on the planet Earth. It's right there. So York was practicing not only incest, he was practicing pedophilia. He was also practicing hermaphrodite and pedophilia orgies mixed together, comboed together. So it's nothing else people should be confused about. The information is here. We did all the research, put it here for you, so you can do the reading and reasoning on it yourself. Stop following this filthy pedophile that's possessed by 6 ether and 4 ether. This is what's wrong. This is why all of y'all are sick to this day right now, because you possessed. Get a hold of some turpentine and so forth, the nature books, and cut the rest of them fools off for to get you destroyed right along with them.
Alright, so Hammurabi was the 6th king of the first Babylonian dynasty, reigning from 1792 BC to 1750 BC. According to the Middle chronology, he was preceded by his father, Sin-Muballit, who abdicated due to failing health. He extended Babylon's control throughout Mesopotamia through military campaigns. Hammurabi is also known for the Code of Hammurabi, one of the oldest surviving code of law in recorded history. The name Hammurabi derives from the Amorite term Amurapi. The kinsman is a healer, itself from Amnu, pattern kinsman, and Rapi, healer. Alright. So Hammurabi, he has a famous statue where he's standing and he's depicted as receiving his royal insignia from Shamash or Murdoch. So this particular picture is showing you that the particular spirit or force that he's receiving basically his power from is Melchizedek or Murdoch. So a lot of times when you see a particular god with a particular human being, it's because they're making a covenant between the two. You understand what I'm saying? So if we see a picture of a sun god with a particular human, it's showing you that the spirit is taking its precedence and making that covenant with the two individuals. So basically, in that picture with Hammurabi and Murdoch or Melchizedek, they're agreeing that they're gonna do their will or their bidding together. So the spirit is gonna incarnate inside of him, and basically they're gonna help each other. And one of the main things that Hammurabi did before he even took rulership, or actually when he did take rulership, but before he even started his excavations, one of the main things that he did was build many temples in reference to Murdoch, because that was the god that was leading him or incarnated within him. This is one of the main things that we need to understand, you know, is that the ancients understood that they were possessed with different deities within them. And if any Nawapians dispute that, then they'll have to explain why Mr. York claimed he was incarnated with many of these different deities. So this is something that has been occurring since the beginning of time. So with clear evidence, even in the painting itself, we can see that Murdoch is giving his power to Hammurabi. Now, how does this tie into Abraham and Hammurabi? Now, Abraham gives much honor and praise to Melchizedek when you go into the Bible.
Great responsibility. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. neither mother nor father. He who is without descent, having neither beginning of days, nor end of life. I am the King of kings, and the Lord of lords, the Ancient of days, he who remains a priest forever, the head of the 24 elders who existed before. I am the one and only Melchizedek, the King of Salem, Maliki Sadiq, the King of righteousness, the Archangel Michael, commander of the angelic army of hosts, he who holds the power to defeat the order of the Most High. I am the one who initiates all others to become Zadok, High Priest, after my order, the order of Melchizedek. I have been likened to Christ, but really and truly.
According to the Nuwaubian elder, Earl Dagans, he made statements that Melchizedek was not a Phoenician. But if you go take a look in El's Holy Torah by Dr. York, the images in there that show Melchizedek, they are showing a Phoenician male. He has dark skin with straightish kind of, curly hair. And there's no person of the African race that has hair such aware that Melchizedek was the incarnation of the Most High God Elyon. He had to be aware of it because he wouldn't have put it in his text.
So that concludes today's lesson for those who swear and think that Nunaboos can't teach or break things down or break the spell they like to use, because a lot of them have not been able to do it. And so this is just exemplifying what Sound Right Reason and Noon Science does through its descendants. And the evidence is right here. So we want y'all to wake up, because how y'all look right now, it's crazy. You gotta wake up, because this is how y'all look to us.